Welcome, everyone, to the Privacy Report. Today we're diving into something many of us use daily, maybe without thinking too much about the deeper implications. Wearable technology. You know, your smartwatch, fitness tracker, maybe even smart rings or those newer AR glasses. They started as novelties, didn't they? But now they're almost essential health companions for a lot of people. They track sleep, heart rate, steps, even cycles for women. Super convenient, really transformative for managing health. But what's the flip side? What's the privacy cost when we wrap ourselves in these sensors, constantly pumping out, well, incredibly intimate data about ourselves?
That's exactly it. That's the core tension, isn't it? We gain convenience, we gain insight, but we're essentially giving companies and whoever they share data with this continuous permanent window into our internal state. So our goal today is really to map that out. How do these devices actually collect your data? How is it analyzed? Where does it go? And crucially, what are the privacy and security risks for you?
Right. And before we really get into the nuts and bolts of that data flow, just a quick reminder, if you find this kind of focused discussion useful and want to stay updated on privacy issues, please do subscribe to our email newsletter. You can find it at theprivacyreport.net.
Okay, so let's start with the data itself, the sheer amount and the kind of data being collected. It's not just steps anymore.
No, not at all. That's the key difference with wearables. They capture this incredibly granular, really intimate layer of information. It goes way beyond simple activity counts.
Yeah, when you actually list it out, it's kind of staggering. We're talking precise sleep stage analysis, long-term location history forming trails, unique gait signatures, the specific way you walk, which can identify you, even things like ambient audio picked up by microphones, and these complex stress indicators derived by machine learning algorithms.
Let's maybe zoom in on one metric that sounds technical but is really revealing. Heart rate variability, or HRV. It's not just how fast your heart is beating. HRV measures the tiny variations in milliseconds between each heartbeat. Now, why does that matter? Right. What does that tell them?
It's a direct window into your autonomic nervous system. Basically, the balance between your stress response, fight or flight, and your relaxation response, rest and digest. So tracking HRV over time paints this incredibly detailed picture of your stress levels, your overall physiological health, even potential emotional distress. It's deeply personal.
Wow. Okay, so that really shifts the data from just being a log of activity to potentially a psychological profile. That feels like a huge leap. So where does all this super sensitive information actually end up? What's the path it takes?
Well, the pathway is pretty consistent across most of the big players. First, the data is stored right there on the wearable itself, temporarily. Then, it syncs usually over Bluetooth to the companion app on your smartphone.
Okay, the app on the phone.
Right. And that app acts like a gateway. It often compresses the data, maybe aggregates it a bit, and then transmits it up to the vendor's cloud servers, massive data centers. And that's where the real processing happens, generating those insights you see in the app. But it's also where the risk really escalates, because that's where data often gets shared with, business partners, third parties.
Let's compare this for a second. If my credit card number leaks, it's bad, but I can cancel the card. If a password leaks, I change it. Why is leaked biometric data, like you described, so much more, well, dangerous?
This is such a critical point. It really needs emphasizing. You hit it exactly. A password could be changed. A credit card, canceled.
Yeah.
But your biometric patterns, your specific heart rhythm signature, the unique way you walk, your sleep cycle nuances, these things are, for all practical purposes, permanent. They're unique identifiers hardwired to you. Once that kind of permanent identifier is compromised, it's out there forever. You can't reset your heartbeat signature. And that permanence makes this data uniquely valuable to certain actors and almost impossible to truly anonymize effectively in the long run.
That permanence is chilling, really. And it immediately makes this data a prime target. So let's get to the so what. Who actually wants this stuff? Who is interested in buying or accessing this continuous, non-resettable profile of our inner lives?
Yeah, it's a wider net than people might think.
Yeah.
It's not just about targeted ads, although that's part of it. This data is highly sought after by insurance companies, potential employers, and yes, increasingly law enforcement agencies. Think about insurers. They might not be looking at your specific heart rate today, maybe, but they use aggregated data from millions of users to price risk. They see population-level trends, rising stress indicators, poor sleep patterns across a demographic, and that absolutely feeds into their actuarial models. It affects premiums, ultimately.
And the advertising side, it's getting more sophisticated than just knowing I went for a run, right?
Oh, much more. They're moving beyond simple activity. They can analyze, say, elevated heart rate data combined with your location, maybe a sudden stress spike while you're sitting at your desk or in a certain store. And they use that to infer your emotional state. Maybe they'll serve you ads for relaxation apps or a vacation package based on what your physiology suggests you might be feeling or needing right then. It's predictive based on your body's signals.
And then there's the employer angle. We've seen this crop up with wellness programs.
Yes, that's a really tricky area. Companies often encourage, sometimes even pressure, employees to use wearables for wellness initiatives.
Sure.
The pitch sounds great: improve health, maybe get a discount on insurance. But if participation or the data itself starts getting tied, even informally, to performance reviews or workplace benefits.
It becomes coercive.
Exactly. It creates this subtle pressure where employees feel they have to hand over their intimate health metrics just to keep up or stay in good standing.
Now, a lot of this seems possible because of something people often get wrong, the legal protection or lack thereof. People hear health data and think, HIPAA.
Right. That's a huge misconception. People assume that because it's health-related information, it must have the same strong protections as their medical records from their doctor under laws like HIPAA in the U.S.
But that's not how it works, is it? If my doctor notes my heart rate, that's IPA protected. If my Fitbit records it and sends it to Google's cloud, different story.
Completely different story. And this is absolutely crucial for listeners to understand. HIPAA doesn't primarily regulate the type of data. It regulates the entity handling it. HIPAA applies mainly to what are called covered entities: hospitals, clinics, doctors, health insurers, and their direct business associates. Most wearable companies are tech companies, not healthcare providers in the eyes of that law. So their collection, storage, and sharing of your biometric data, it generally falls completely outside HIPAA's strict protections.
Wow, so there's a massive gap.
A significant legal gap. It leaves you, the user, far more exposed than you probably realize.
And because this data exists, and it's often outside those strict medical privacy laws, law enforcement access becomes a very real thing, not just theoretical.
Precisely. It's already happened.
Yeah.
Wearable data location trails, activity levels, even heart rate data around the time of an incident has been requested and obtained using subpoenas and warrants in criminal investigations. It can provide investigators with incredibly detailed circumstantial evidence: where someone was, whether they were active or resting, maybe their stress level when they woke up. Things that can be used to build a case.
Okay, so the data is valuable, it's intimate, and it's often legally exposed. That naturally leads to questions about security. How well is this data actually protected? What are the common weak spots?
It's usually not just one single massive flaw. It's more like a stack of vulnerabilities, a series of weak links. We often see devices shipped with weak default security settings. Sometimes manufacturers are slow or inconsistent with firmware updates to patch known issues. Then there's the companion app on your phone, often asking for way too many permissions. Like, why does my step tracker need access to my microphone or contacts?
That's a good question.
And perhaps the most concerning area is the murky world of data sharing, poorly disclosed agreements between the wearable company and various third-party partners about how your data is used downstream.
And you mentioned transmission earlier. Is it really true that some of this high-value biometric data is still being sent insecurely, like unencrypted?
Yes, unfortunately, especially with older or maybe lower-end devices. Some still transmit data between the wearable and the phone app using unencrypted Bluetooth. That's like shouting your health stats across a crowded room. But even if the Bluetooth link is encrypted, there are other vectors. The data eventually lives in the cloud. If the vendor's cloud systems, their APIs, those access points, if they're poorly secured, or if access keys leak, an attacker might not even need to get near your physical device. They could potentially access your entire data history directly from the vendor's servers.
So let's picture an attacker. If I'm just walking down the street wearing my device, how might they try to exploit that? What's the playbook look like?
Well, the first simplest step is often just passive scanning. Your wearable is constantly broadcasting a Bluetooth signal to announce itself. Think of it like a little radio beacon. If the unique identifier in that signal isn't changed regularly, if it's static, an attacker can just listen for that signal over time. They can track your physical movements just by picking up that persistent license plate as you move around different locations.
And they could potentially link that signal back to me.
If they can correlate that signal with other data, maybe from a different breach, yes. They start building a profile tied to that specific device signal.
And what if they manage to actually intercept the data stream or hit the cloud endpoint?
If they intercept the Bluetooth traffic and it's unencrypted, they might get raw data right there. If it's encrypted, it's harder, but not impossible depending on the encryption strength. But hitting a poorly secured cloud endpoint is often easier. They bypass your device and app entirely and go straight for the database holding potentially years of your sensitive data. Now imagine an attacker gets that hoard of biometric and location history. They can then cross-reference it with information from other data breaches, names, emails, passwords, addresses, readily available on the dark web. Suddenly, that anonymous data breach profile gets linked to this incredibly intimate record of your physical state, your sleep patterns, where you've been. It creates a terrifyingly detailed picture of you.
Okay, that's a pretty stark scenario. But let's be realistic. Most people aren't going to just toss their smartwatch in the bin tomorrow. So, for you listening, if you want to keep using these devices for their health benefits, but want to manage the risks better, what can you actually do? What are the practical steps to, reduce that attack surface?
Right. Mitigation isn't about necessarily abandoning the tech. It's about being intentional.
Yeah.
You have to actively manage it. Remember, this tech creates a constant data flow, so the goal is to minimize that flow and lock down the access points as much as possible. First step, and it's crucial. When you first set up the device and app, or even now, go back and scrutinize the permissions it's asking for. Really think, does my sleep tracker really need access to my location all the time? Or my microphone?
That seems obvious, but people often just click allow.
Exactly. Be skeptical. If a permission seems unnecessary for the core function you want, deny it. Disable every tracking feature you don't actively use or need. Pare it down.
And what about connecting these accounts to other things, like using Google or Facebook to log in?
Yeah, that's another key point. Avoid linking your wearable account directly to big advertising ecosystems if you can help it. Use a unique email and password for your fitness account. The aim is to keep your physiological data siloed, separate from your main social media or online consumer profile. Don't make it easy for companies to merge those data sets. Also, consider looking for brands that explicitly market themselves as privacy-focused. Some offer devices with local-only storage options or require manual syncing, which means your data isn't just automatically uploaded to the cloud 24/7. Less cloud exposure means less risk.
Okay, those are great strategic points, but maybe the most immediate tangible thing someone can do right now is to check their phone settings,
Oh, yeah.
because the companion app is the gatekeeper, right? Let's walk through how you can audit those app permissions.
Definitely. Okay, so for iOS users, Apple provides a really useful tool called the App Privacy Report. Go into your Settings app, scroll down to Privacy and Security, and tap on App Privacy Report. You might need to turn it on if you haven't used it before. Let it run for a day or two while you use your device normally. Then go back and look closely at your wearable's companion app entry. It will show you exactly which sensors, like location, motion, maybe microphone it accessed, and when. Crucially, it also shows which network domains the app contacted. If you see it frequently pinging advertising trackers or using sensors unexpectedly, you should go back into the app's specific permissions under Privacy and Security and revoke anything that looks excessive.
Okay, that's powerful for iPhone users. What about Android?
Android users have something similar, usually called Permission Manager or just Permissions. Go into your phone settings, then look for Security and Privacy, or sometimes just Privacy. It varies a bit by manufacturer. Find the Permission Manager. Here you can review permissions by category. You want to check categories like location, physical activity, body sensors, and maybe nearby devices. Look for your wearables app in each relevant category and see what level of access it has. Can it access location all the time? Maybe change that to only while using the app or ask every time. Be restrictive. Downgrade permissions wherever it makes sense for how you actually use the device.
Just doing that check, that permission audit, seems like a huge step in taking back some control.
It really is. It makes you aware of the data flows and lets you actively prune them back.
Yeah.
So as we sort of wrap up this discussion, I think it's worth circling back to that core tension we started with.
Yeah, the fundamental trade-off.
Exactly. These devices, these wearables, they offer genuinely useful, sometimes even life-changing health insights. No question about that. But the price of admission, currently, is generating this continuous, identifiable, essentially permanent stream of your most intimate biometric data. And vendors frequently share this data with third parties, often in ways you're not fully aware of. And perhaps most importantly, this whole ecosystem largely operates outside the strong legal privacy protections we normally associate with our medical information.
So you get the medical grade monitoring potentially, but without the medical grade privacy rules attached.
That's a concise way to put it, yes. And that reality really forces us to think about the future. As technology gets even more pervasive, think about augmented reality glasses becoming mainstream. Devices that literally see what you see, hear what you hear, maybe even track your eye movements constantly. The boundaries are going to blur even further.
And that leaves us with a really challenging question, doesn't it? How do we, as a society, how does the technology itself draw a meaningful ethical line? A line between genuinely useful biometric monitoring that enhances our health and well-being and, well, total inescapable behavioral surveillance built right into the tech we wear every day.
That's the question we all need to keep asking every time we strap on one of these incredibly powerful devices.
Indeed. A crucial question for the years ahead. We do want to mention that this discussion was put together with the assistance of AI.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and engaging with these important issues with us today.
Yes, thank you for listening. Please do like and subscribe to the Privacy Report wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss future discussions. We appreciate you joining us.